Resident Evil is not just back, it never left, and Resident Evil Requiem, the ninth mainline entry in Capcom's legendary survival horror franchise, is the kind of game that reminds you exactly why this series has endured for nearly 3 decades. Released in 2026 alongside what fans are already calling the most loaded year in gaming history, Requiem arrives with something to prove, and it delivers with both hands. The game follows two protagonists whose stories unfold in starkly different ways. Grace Ashcraft, an FBI agent who finds herself trapped inside a sprawling, nightmarish mansion, anchors the first half of the experience. Leon Kennedy, the franchise's most beloved and recognizable hero, returns to take players back through the irradiated ruins of Raccoon City. On paper, the pairing sounds like a greatest hits compilation. In practice, it plays like a masterclass in tonal contrast and mechanical design. Marketing for Requiem leaned heavily into Leon's return to Raccoon City, and understandably so. His name alone carries enormous weight in this universe, and the imagery of a post-nuclear Raccoon City is genuinely striking. But once the credits roll, what lingers most is not the iconic skyline of a destroyed city. It is the cold, suffocating dread of that mansion, the footsteps in the hallway, the 9 rounds of 9mm ammunition sitting in Grace's inventory like a cruel joke. Playing as Grace is a fundamentally different experience than anything Resident Evil has offered in recent years. Resources are brutally scarce. Crafting requires blood literally as Grace collects biological material and combines it with components to produce ammunition and supplies. Her carry capacity is limited, forcing players to think carefully about what they bring with them on any given run through the manor's corridors. The iconic item chest returns for Grace, offering a small but vital refuge for overflow inventory, while Leon operates without one entirely. What Grace does have, and what no amount of gear can replace, is a persistent, almost suffocating sense of vulnerability. The mansion is not simply full of zombies, it is patrolled by a relentless, hulking butcher whose artificial intelligence adapts to player behavior, learning routes, and adjusting its patrol patterns based on where it anticipates the player will move next. There are other large, lurking threats as well, drawing clear comparisons to the beloved Mr. X from Resident Evil 2. The safe room exists, and it does provide a brief exhale, but reaching it is never guaranteed. Leon's chapters offer a necessary counterweight. He carries significantly more equipment, has access to broader crafting options, and brings with him the satisfying arc of a seasoned operator who came prepared. His gameplay never crosses into full action territory. Requiem is careful not to repeat the mistakes of Resident Evil 5, which many fans felt abandoned the series' horror roots entirely. Instead, Leon's sections feel like survival horror with room to breathe, the difference between threading a needle and threading it with a slightly steadier hand. The progression system across both characters captures something that defines the best entries in this franchise. Early on, every bullet feels precious. Every shotgun shell is a small treasure to be rationed and preserved. By the final stretch, particularly with Leon, the balance shifts, and there is a slow-building confidence that comes from knowing how to read the environment, manage threats, and push forward. The end boss, however, does not fully capitalize on that build-up. On normal difficulty, the final encounter is a relatively straightforward fight, one that rewards players who hoarded their special ammunition, branded in-universe as Requiem rounds, but does not demand much beyond having enough healing items on hand. Visually, Requiem is a showcase for what current hardware can do. On PlayStation 5 Pro, the rain effects and water simulation are genuinely photorealistic, a detail that has already circulated widely online and sparked comparison videos against previous entries. Sound design is equally aggressive. Playing through a surround sound system turns the experience into something visceral: creatures crawling through walls, groaning in adjacent rooms, stalkers dragging themselves through darkness just out of frame. There is no substitute. One of Requiem's most interesting mechanical decisions is its camera flexibility. The game officially supports both first-person and third-person perspectives, and it makes deliberate recommendations. First person for Grace, to maximize immersion and fear; third person for Leon, to match his more controlled, deliberate playstyle. Following those suggestions pays off. The tonal split between characters is reinforced at every level, from camera angle to resource economy to the specific texture of tension each section generates. Puzzle design remains a cornerstone of the experience, though completionists should note that Requiem is generous enough in its environmental storytelling that it is entirely possible to finish the game without solving every puzzle or understanding where every component belongs. Those loose ends are an open invitation for a second playthrough at higher difficulty, where the full architecture of the game's design is likely to come into clearer focus. What Requiem ultimately represents is a franchise that knows what it is and refuses to apologize for it. It is zombies and infected corridors and grotesque mutations, and the particular brand of resource anxiety that Capcom has refined over 9 mainline entries. It borrows confidently from its own history. There are Easter eggs for Resident Evil 2 fans scattered throughout the Raccoon City sections without leaning on nostalgia as a substitute for craft. The mansion is another mansion. The stalker is another stalker. But the execution is sharp enough that neither of those facts feels like a limitation. In 2026, with gaming calendars packed and player attention fragmented across dozens of major releases, Resident Evil Requiem stands out, not because it reinvents the wheel, but because it is a reminder of why that wheel was worth building in the first place. Survival horror, done right, does not need to evolve into something unrecognizable. It just needs to be genuinely terrifying, mechanically honest, and relentlessly committed to making the player feel like the odds are never, ever in their favor. Have you played Resident Evil Requiem yet? Which character's sections hit harder for you, Grace's nerve-shredding mansion crawl or Leon's more tactical Raccoon City run? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this breakdown had you nodding along, make sure to like, subscribe, and stick around. There is plenty more to talk about.